For this lesson, we are looking at brush strokes. We're going to make a variety of brush strokes using a round brush and a flat, bright brush. Okay, so grab your two brushes, grab some black paint. This is acrylic black paint, and a jar of water to keep your brushes clean. I want to remind you, I think it feels like common sense, but just to make sure that you rinse your brushes first. You want to make sure that those bristles are nice and wet, not dripping, but they need to be wet so that you can kind of protect those bristles from getting the paint down into the collar. So once you wet it, you just kind of dry it off any way you want. And then let's begin. So grab your round. Let's start with a round. We're going to work on making thin strokes first. So I just get enough paint on my brush. I obviously am not getting it but the tip. You can see where my bristles are stained. They're stained about halfway through. Even this one's, it's actually, I don't know if you can tell, but I have about half. Oh yeah, there you go. See, it's really yellow down in here, but the rest of it's stained in here. And that's because when I use my paint, it's always at that back, the tip. It's not shoved down into the collar. So try to keep that habit of keeping the paint towards the tip and not getting it all the way down in. You can see, you can see the staining. See where that's kind of my habitual stopping point. So try to keep it in there. All right, through pressure. Pressure is very important. Let's work on really light pressure and we can make thin lines. I'm not going to have it up and down, but I'm not having it sideways. I'm kind of just somewhere in between, and just lightly pull down. We tend to pull with our brush. We don't tend to, I mean, you can push with a brush, but for the most part, strokes are rather, in general, they're pulled down. You can use the edge of your vessel to get excess paint off so it's not gloppy. So nice and thin like that. Ooh, I like that one. Okay, so practice and see how thin you can get it. Okay, next, let's play with going, and please feel free, stop the video, pause in between. I'm just going to rip right through it, okay? The next thing we want to play with is pressing down. So I'm going to press down just really thick. Here I go. Press down thick. Get some more paint. It uses up your paint. Press down thick. Okay? Pulling down. And we tend to, when we begin, do a lot of that. It's not bad, it's just very thick. This shows the width of my brush really well. This one is, you wouldn't really know the width of the brush based on the line. So just remember that it really doesn't matter if you have a really, really thin little brush. If you control a nice pointed round brush, you can get a really thin line. So you can get a variety of strokes just with one brush. It depends on pressure. And we can play with a mix and match of that. Let's try this. We're going to try going thin and then pushing down and then pulling up. Okay, play with that. Just play with it. We're just going rounded, kind of. Anyway. Oh, I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. Sorry about that. Hold on. Let me go back over it. Clean some of these up a little bit. All right. Yeah, that one's better. I'm warming up. Okay, try that out. Let's try this one too. We'll go from thin to fat to thin. So that starts out thick, it starts out thin, goes to thick, goes to thin. Just play with it. For this drill though, I would really like you to please treat these strokes separately. See how I have them organized? I have it kind of laid out. I don't want this big craziness on the paper. Okay, try out one kind of style of it. Keep it in sections if you can, please. All right, let me see. I'm thinking through here. Okay, let's wipe this off. Rinse it out. Water here. And I think for the most part, this brush is fine. It's clean enough. Okay, cool. Going on to the flat brush. And let's work with brush strokes on the flat brush. And I'm going to start out by making thin lines with my flat brush. So I'm going to go just kind of chisel down on that edge. So it's kind of sideways. And I want careful, deliberate strokes, okay? Not really messing around. I want you to think through it and aim to get nice, thin, even strokes. Then, after you, again, pause the video. I'm going to rip through these. I'm going to try to play with thin to fat a little bit, okay? So I'll go thin to fat to thin. Oop. Some more paint. Thin to fat to thin. Just to play. I mean, you know, play, but test it out. Experiment. Okay. I'll do like maybe 2 more of those. I should probably take my watch off. I have a rubber band around my wrist and it's, I go and it catches. Maybe see, maybe that was an excuse. No, it feels better. It feels a lot better. Anyway, yeah, take rubber bands off your wrist if they don't help you. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so play with that. Kind of going from thin to fat to thin. And again, we want to think about pressure. All right, next stroke. Let's take our flat brush. Let's make sure we're not really, see how that glop is on there? I'm going to just kind of take and smooth it out on the side of my cup. Let's work on making squares. I'm pulling straight down with the width. So before, remember, I just pulled straight down with the side of the brush. Now I'm pulling straight down with the broad side of my brush. You can rework your stroke. Don't panic if it didn't quite pull out. Oh, that pulled out nice. If it doesn't pull out great, just redo it. Just kind of touch it up. Okay, so do a few of those. All right, I wanted to show you dry brushing. You take your brush and you get most of the paint off of it. And then you can go ahead and play with dry brushing. Now, dry brushing is really, it's irritating when you don't want a dry brush. You're like, I wanted it dark like that. But it makes a really nice texture. So if you were going to do wood grain, you could dry brush. Can you see how that would make a nice scumbling effect if you're trying to make gravel, or you were trying to make distressed wood or hair. It's especially great when you're layering. So you have a lighter color and then you layer this dry brush of a darker color over it. It can give a really nice effect, a really nice texture. Okay, so that's dry brushing. Try some of that out. All right, I'm going to fill my brush again. And I'm going to play with those curved strokes like this. But I'm going to mix and match it so it almost looks like a comma. So thin to fat. Like Again, it's kind of a pressure. It's obviously an angle change, but I'm also not going, I'm not pushing down up here. I'm letting it. Okay, try that out. Okay, and then for fun, let me angle this. I'm gonna just turn my paper because it really doesn't matter. Well, I want to make sure my hand doesn't get black on it. All right, I'm gonna go up in here. I'm gonna make a flower. So the flower isn't just to make a flower. The flower is to just play with practicing these thin strokes. So I'm going to go thin sideways, make the fat side of my brush, and then in. Okay. It's a nice little exercise to try. Playing with pressure. Fill my brush up again. Ooh, there's a little dry brushing in there. Look at that, yeah, I'm losing paint. Alright, so do you see how it's thin and then it goes to fat and then thin? Let's try doing those petals like that. And then I'm just going to make some accent marks. Again, this is just a way to practice. Pressure. Make some marks that come out of it. Okay, so give that a shot. I'd like to see you try that. Now, I also want to introduce the concept that paintbrushes, especially these flat paintbrushes, can make really nice lettering. So let me fill this up a second. And hold on, I need to see. I have this letter. Okay, and some wording. I just want to look at how they did it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin, thick my way through this with pressure. So I'm going to write the word joy. Okay, and it kind of scumbled at the side. That's okay. Just clean it up. There you go. Now I'm going to leave this open. I'll show you what I'm going to do. Hang on. So then I'll put the Y in. I'm going to use another piece of paper to block. I don't need to be painting on the table, do I? Okay, there, that's nice. I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to grab that round that I was using. And throw in that. I don't know. You can play with it. Yay. So I've got some lettering. You can do any kind of script lettering with brushes. I'm not well practiced at it. I am sorry. I used to be a ton better, but I haven't been practicing. So it's kind of like watching Mr. Incredible play with the trains. Remember he had that fat belly. Anyway, anyway, you can see what I'm saying. You can really make some nice lettering with a paintbrush. You don't have to buy a special marking pen. I'm gonna run into its. Whoa. I didn't plan any of it out, but that's okay. Anyway, I'm messing with it, but there you go. Just choose joy. Anyway, you can play with brushes to make lettering. And again, I'm sorry, I'm not very well practiced at it. But if you look at a font that you like, and you're like, gosh, it would be really fun. You can play with mixing and matching your chisel, your flat, with your round, and you can make some nice stuff. Okay. Another thing you can do that I think is great is if you like calligraphy, and you practice that and then you regard, you can use a flat brush for black lettering and calligraphy. So if I were going to be, I'm trying to think of a word. Okay. You can take and make and use it just like you would a calligraphy nib. And I need more paint. Gosh, you guys, I'm sorry. I've got the camera right under my paintbrush. Try not to hit it. Okay, here we go. Ah, sticky. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna lose my space down here. And there it goes, yeah. Holy. Anyway, you could play with it. It's really fun. And I like knowing that if I were going to have to make like a garage sale sign or something, that I can paint the letters. You don't have to buy a big marking pen. You can just paint them in. If you have to make a post or something, paint the lettering in. It actually also is a lot better with light fastness. So if you have to have some sort of poster or informational thing and you decided to hand write it out, it's way better to do it in paint than to try to do it in marking pen, because the marking pen will fade. Anyway, if you could, make sure you have these brush strokes, try the flower out, and maybe try a word out. That'd be really, really great. Okay, thanks.